The Wagner commander Xyloth burst into cruel, mocking laughter when the human soldier Admiral Horus challenged him to let the humans train alongside the elite alien warriors. But Xyloth had no idea that human soldiers, born on the crucible of the hell world called Earth, lived lives of constant battle against impossible odds, and that his arrogance would soon become his greatest regret. I'm Stephen Bennett, a grizzled old super soldier, who was there that fateful day on planet Zephyr when the alien Wagner first met humanity. It didn't go well. The meeting was in a big auditorium. Us humans were excited but on guard. The alien Wagner looked like a cross between big birds of prey and velociraptors, standing on two legs with sharp beaks and covered in feathers, but instead of wings they had long bladed arms, and their gleaming predator eyes looked at us humans like primitive cavemen. Admiral Horus, a battle-scarred Navy-man who'd fought in the brutal EO campaign, stepped forward and said the human soldiers should train alongside the aliens to learn from each other. Commander Xyloth, the beak-faced alien leader, threw his head back and laughed like a hyena. His soldiers all burst into barking alien laughter too. Once the room went quiet again, Xyloth grinned cruelly at Horus. "If your pathetic band of primates can even survive a single training session with my elite warriors, human, I'll eat my own wing blades. We would break you like twigs." Horus's face went red with anger, but he kept his voice steady. "Then let us train together, and if any of my human soldiers quit early, we will humbly admit defeat and inferiority." A grim smile crossed my face. My fingers rested on the butt of my sidearm. Every human in that room would rather die than fail this. The arrogant bird brains had no idea what they had just started. The training exercise kicked off, and we found ourselves staring down the armored backs of alien soldiers on Kragmar, the Wagner's harsh training planet. The place looked like it had crawled out of some fevered nightmare. Jagged black mountains clawed at the sky, while deserts of silica sand stretched out, the grains as sharp as razors. Bubbling tar pits dotted the hellscape, belching out toxic fumes that stung our eyes and throats. The Wagner stood there in their sleek ebony armor, openly sneering at our mismatched human gear, cobbled together from the best Earth's militaries had to offer. But I was used to the sideways looks. I methodically checked over my trusty M4 carbine and body armor, the same set Uncle Sam issued me over a decade ago. It had never let me down before, and it wasn't about to start now. With a bird-like screech, the training exercise began. The Wagner took off like bats out of hell, using their high-tech toys to zip across the deadly terrain. Grappling hooks shot out, pulling them up sheer cliffs in seconds. Jetpacks flared to life, letting them glide over gaping chasms and bubbling tar with ease. Shimmering force fields sprung up when one took a bad step, saving them from being sliced to ribbons by the glittering silica sand. Us humans, we had to rely on what God gave us: muscle, bone, and raw grit. I took point leading my squad along a snaking path through the hazards. Each step was a gamble, and I carefully tested every rock and foothold before signaling the others to follow. A single misstep could send us plummeting into a hidden quagmire, or a vent spewing out noxious gas. The Wagner watched from their high vantage points, barking out mocking laughs at our slow progress and apparent struggles, but I just let myself have a small smile, my ears perking up at their taunts. They wanted to underestimate us. That was just fine in my book. Slow and steady, we pressed forward. Each movement was precise and purposeful. We were pacing ourselves for the long haul. I let out a low chuckle, watching the high and mighty Wagner soldiers start to flounder. Those grappling hooks they were so smug about suddenly refused to latch onto the glassy obsidian, skittering uselessly off the surface. The jetpacks that had them zipping around like it was nothing sputtered and died, sending more than a few crashing into the razor dunes below. Even those fancy force fields were on the fritz, flickering in and out like a busted neon sign. What those bird brains didn't know, and what I'm about to let you in on, is that our eggheads back home had been studying their tech for months, found a real interesting quirk. The whole lot was real sensitive to certain EM frequencies, the kind a little gizmo could pump out if you had it tuned just right. And wouldn't you know it, each and every one of us had one of those gizmos squirreled away, courtesy of our science division. So while the Wagner were busy cursing out their gear, we pressed on. Wasn't easy going, not by a long shot. The ravine we were picking our way through was a death trap, with loose shale, ready to give way any second. But we'd trained for this sort of thing, pushed our bodies to the limit day in and day out. This was just another obstacle course to us. I took the lead, finding the hand and footholds in the crumbling rock face. My squad followed close behind, moving like a well-oiled machine. No fancy toys, just ropes, carabiners, and a whole lot of grit. Below us, I could hear the frustrated shouts of the Wognir as they tried and failed to get their busted grappling hooks to bite into the stone. It was slow going, but we made it to the top, every last one of us. I hauled myself over the edge, took a knee, and surveyed the scene below. It was a damn mess. The Wognir were scattered all over the place, some nursing wounds from falls, others just standing around, squawking angrily at their useless equipment. A far cry from the sneering, laughing bastards they'd been at the start of this whole thing. The final stage of the training exercise took us deep into a dense, noxious swamp. The air was thick with the stench of decay and the bubbling of foul gases. It was the perfect place for an ambush, and that's exactly what Xyloth had in mind. I signaled my squad to fan out and take cover behind the gnarled, twisted trees that sprouted from the muck like skeletal fingers. We knew the Wognir had abandoned their malfunctioning tech, but that didn't make them any less dangerous. They had their natural weapons to fall back on, razor-sharp wing blades, spiked tails, and venomous fangs that could tear a man apart in seconds. But this was the moment I'd been waiting for, a chance to prove once and for all that human soldiers could adapt and overcome, no matter the odds. We had a few tricks up our sleeves, too. I clutched my electrified batons tight, feeling the hum of the current through the grips. Around me, my squad readied their own weapons, a mix of traditional firearms and specialized melee gear designed to counter the Wognir's natural defenses. The swamp was deathly still for a moment, the only sound the drip of water and the occasional hiss of a gas vent. Then, with a blood-curdling shriek, Xyloth and his elite guard burst from the underbrush. Around us, the swamp erupted into chaos. Gunfire echoed through the trees, mixed with the snarls and roars of the Wognir and the shouts of my squad. I caught glimpses of the battle as I danced with Xyloth, Private Jenkins jamming his combat knife into a Wognir's eye socket, Sergeant Hawkins blasting another point-blank with her shotgun. As Xyloth pressed in, his blades a blur, but I parried every strike. My batons hissed and spat with each impact, the electricity causing his feathers to smoke. I saw an opening and lunged, the tip of my baton sinking into the meat of his thigh. The alien commander howled in pain and rage, but didn't falter. We traded blows back and forth, neither of us giving an inch. The swamp itself seemed to rebel against the intrusion, spewing out jets of foul-smelling gas and sucking at our boots with every step. But through it all, my squad held the line. I could see it in Xyloth's eyes, a flicker of doubt, of dawning realization. These humans, these primitives he had mocked and underestimated, were more than a match for his elite warriors. We fought with a ferocity and tenacity that matched the Wognir's savagery blow for blow. Xyloth came at me again, his wounded leg dragging but his blade still deadly. I batted them aside and slammed my baton into his feathered chest, the impact sending him staggering back. He tripped over a gnarled root and went down hard, disappearing into the murky water with a splash. I stood there panting, my batons still crackling with energy. Around me I could hear the sounds of the battle winding down. The crack of gunfire became sporadic, then ceased. The snarls and shrieks of the Wognir faded, replaced by the low groans of the wounded and dying. One of my men, Corporal Davis, emerged from the underbrush. He was splattered with mud and Wognir blood, a jagged cut running down his cheek, but he was grinning from ear to ear. "We did it, sir," he said, his voice hoarse from shouting. "We showed those bastards what humanity is made of." I clapped him on the shoulder, too exhausted to speak, but he was right. Against all odds, in the heart of this alien swamp, we had proven our worth. We had shown the galaxy that human soldiers were a force to be reckoned with. The battle raged on, a maelstrom of slashing blades, cracking stun batons, and snarling alien warriors. I ducked under a vicious swipe from a Wogner guard's tail and slammed my baton into his feathered flank. The alien screeched in pain, his muscles spasming from the electrical charge. But even as he fell, two more took his place, their eyes glinting with feral bloodlust. In the heart of the melee, I caught sight of Commander Xyloth, his wing blades a blur as he fought off 3 of my men at once. The bastard was fast, I'll give him that. But there was something off about his movements, a strange fluidity and grace that seemed to defy the swamp's clinging mud and tangling vines. I pushed my way towards him, batting aside Wogner guards with brutal efficiency. Xyloth saw me coming and bared his fangs in a vicious grin. "You fight well for a primate," he hissed, his voice dripping with condescension. "But you are no match for a Wogner elite." He lunged at me, his wing blades slicing through the air. I parried the first strike, feeling the impact rattle up my arm. The second scored a glancing cut across my ribs, drawing blood. I gritted my teeth and countered, my batons a whirling dervish of crackling energy. We traded blows back and forth, neither of us giving an inch. But as we fought, I noticed something strange, a pulsing glow emanating from a device on Xyloth's belt. It wasn't like any tech I'd seen the Wogner use before. Realization dawned. The sneaky bastard was cheating. I feinted left, then lunged right, my hand darting out to snatch the device from Xyloth's belt. The Wogner commander let out a squawk of surprise and rage, but it was too late. I crushed the device in my fist, feeling it crumple like tin foil. Instantly, Xyloth's movements turned sluggish, his wing blades suddenly heavy and clumsy. I pressed my advantage, raining down blows on his weakening defenses. "What was that thing?" I demanded, my voice a low growl. Xyloth snarled in defiance, but I could see the fear in his eyes. "A gravity manipulator," he spat. "To counter Kragmar's heavy gravity, you may have taken it, but you still cannot win." I saw the realization dawn on his face, the horror as he understood. We'd trained for this, long hours in the high-gravity chambers, pushing our bodies to the limit, all to counter the Wogner's dirty tricks. Around us, I could hear the tide of battle turning. My men, no longer hobbled by the Wogner's tech advantage, surged forward with renewed vigor. The aliens fell back, their formations crumbling under the onslaught. I slammed my baton into Xyloth's leg, dropping him to one knee. "It's over, Xyloth, you've lost." "Surrender," I demanded, my baton poised for a final devastating strike. For a long moment, Xyloth held my gaze, defiance warring with the cold reality of his defeat. Then, with a snarl of rage and humiliation, he let his wing blades fall to the ground. "I yield," he spat, the words bitter on his tongue. I nodded, a grim smile on my lips. Around me, my men secured the remaining Wogner guards, binding their hands and wings with heavy chains. We had done it. Against all odds, against all the sneering condescension and dirty tricks, we had proven our worth. As the smoke clears, I gather my squad around me. We're all pretty banged up, blood and grime smeared across our faces and armor, but as I look at each of them, I see the same fire burning in their eyes. Pride, determination, the unbreakable spirit of humanity. I turn my attention to the captured Wogner soldiers, huddled together under the watchful eyes of our men. There's something in their expressions that catches me off guard. It's not just defeat or humiliation, it's bewilderment, awe even. I spot Commander Xyloth being patched up by one of our medics. The bastard looks like he's been through a meat grinder, his once pristine feathers matted with blood and swamp muck. I stride over to him, my curiosity getting the better of me. "Something on your mind, Xyloth?" I ask, my voice gruff but not unkind. The Wogner commander winces as the medic applies a bandage to a particularly nasty gash on his arm. He looks up at me, his eyes meeting mine. For a moment, I see a flicker of that old arrogance, but it's quickly replaced by something else, something like grudging respect. "You humans," he says, his voice a raspy whisper, "we underestimated you badly." Xyloth shakes his head. "You don't understand. We thought you were soft, weak, your planet Earth. It seemed so tame compared to Kragmar. We thought you'd never survived real hardship." I crouch down beside him, my elbows resting on my knees. Let me tell you something about Earth, Xyloth. It might look tame from up here, but down on the surface, it's a crucible, a forge that's been shaping us for millions of years. I tell him about the deserts, vast seas of sand where the sun beats down mercilessly, baking everything in its unrelenting glare. I speak of the tundras, those frozen wastelands where the cold seeps into your bones and the wind cuts like a knife. The mountains that pierce the sky, their jagged peaks promising both beauty and death. And then there's the life on Earth, the predators that lurk in every shadow, every corner of our world. Beasts with fangs and claws, venom and brute strength. We've had to fight them, outsmart them, just to survive. But it's not just the creatures, I tell Xyloth. It's each other. Humanity, for all our grand achievements, has always been our own worst enemy. We've fought wars over scraps of land, over ideology, over the pettiest of differences, and through it all, we've adapted, evolved. As I speak, I see something change in Xyloth's eyes. The condescension, the dismissal. It's replaced by a glimmer of understanding, of appreciation even. Earth, he murmurs, as if seeing our planet in a new light. It is not a cradle, but a crucible. I stand up, looking out over the swamp, at my battered but unbroken squad. Never underestimate humanity, Xyloth. We'll always find a way. The Vognia commander nods slowly, a new respect etched into his alien features. I leave him to his thoughts, striding back to my men. We've got a long road ahead of us, but for now, we've proven our worth here on this hostile alien world. We've shown the galaxy what humanity is capable of. And God help anyone who tries to stand in our way. Stephen's voice takes on a reverent tone as he recounts the long, brutal history of human warfare. You Vognia, you think you know battle. But let me tell you, humanity has been forged in the fires of war since the dawn of our existence. The Vognia soldiers, Xyloth included, lean in closer, their eyes fixed on the grizzled human veteran. Gone is the mockery, replaced by a genuine curiosity. The wars we've fought, the enemies we've faced, it's staggering. Stephen's gaze grows distant, as if he's reliving those ancient conflicts. Entire continents engulfed in flames, millions upon millions, giving their lives in the name of freedom, ideology, resources, you name it. He tells them of the great world wars, of trenches and mustard gas, of beaches stained red with blood, of Vietnam, where men fought and died in the sweltering jungle, never knowing if the next step would be their last, of the endless deserts of the Middle East, where the enemy could be anyone, and the sun was as merciless as the bullets. But through it all, through every battle, every skirmish, every last-ditch stand, the human spirit endured. We adapted, we overcame, we survived. Stephen's voice is hard as steel, unyielding. He speaks of the ingenuity of human soldiers, the way they could turn scraps and junk into deadly weapons, the way they could use the land itself to their advantage, of the unbreakable bonds forged in the heat of battle, the way a soldier would lay down his life for the man next to him without hesitation. The Vognia listen, enraptured. Xyloth's expression shifts from disbelief to grudging respect to something approaching awe. Here, in the words of this battle-scarred human, he's beginning to understand, to see the depths of strength, the sheer tenacity that defines humanity. As Stephen's tale winds down, Xyloth steps forward. His posture is different now, no longer arrogant and dismissive. There's a humility to him, a newfound respect. Human, Stephen, I must apologize. Xyloth's voice is gruff but sincere. We misjudged you, your species, badly. The Vognia, we thought we understood strength, understood warfare. But we have much to learn from humanity, it seems. Stephen nods, a small smile playing at his lips. He extends his hand, a gesture of peace, of understanding. Xyloth grasps it firmly, his talons intertwining with Stephen's battle-scarred fingers. In that moment, a kind of kinship passes between them. The kinship of warriors, of soldiers who have seen the true face of battle and lived to tell the tale. It's a bond that transcends species, transcends the vast gulfs of space and culture. For in the end, In the crucible of war, are they really so different? Human or Wagner, they fight, they bleed, they die for what they believe in. And in that shared sacrifice, that shared warrior spirit, a new respect is born. The Wagner will not soon forget the lessons they learned on Kragmar, the lessons taught to them by a band of primitive humans. They will carry the memory of this day, of Stephen's words, for generations to come. And humanity, they will continue as they always have, enduring, adapting, overcoming. For that is the true strength of the human spirit, a strength that can never be underestimated, never be broken. Stephen looks out over the assembled soldiers, human and Wagner alike. In their eyes he sees the future, a future of cooperation, of mutual respect and understanding, a future where the warriors of Earth stand shoulder to shoulder with the warriors of the stars. It's a future he's proud to have fought for, a future he knows his comrades, those who fell and those who still stand, would be proud of too. Stephen turns his gaze to the stars above, a silent salute to all those who came before, and all those yet to come. The fight is far from over, he knows. There will always be new battles to be won, new enemies to face. But for now, in this moment of hard-earned peace, he allows himself a moment of quiet pride. Pride in his soldiers, pride in his species, pride in the indomitable human spirit that has carried them this far. They are human, they are soldiers, and they will never ever be underestimated again. Xyloth's clawed hand tightens around Stephen's, a warrior's grip, firm and unyielding. In that clasp, a promise is made, a covenant sealed. The Wagner and the humans, once enemies, now stand as brothers in arms. Forged in the crucible of Kragmar, tempered by the fires of battle, they have found a respect that will not easily be broken. Stephen looks to his men, battered but unbroken, and sees the same fire burning in their eyes. They have proven themselves here, on this alien world, against odds that would have broken lesser men. They have shown the galaxy the true mettle of humanity, and they have done it with unwavering courage and indomitable will. But the journey is far from over. As Stephen well knows, there are always new challenges to face, new enemies to conquer. The universe is a vast and dangerous place, and humanity has only just begun to make its mark. Yet as he stands there, surrounded by his brothers in arms, both human and Wagner, Stephen feels a sense of unshakable confidence. Come what may, they will face it together. They will adapt, they will overcome, they will triumph. For that is the way of the soldier, the way of the warrior. And in the end, isn't that what humanity has always done? Faced the unknown, the impossible, with nothing but courage and determination. They have taken the challenges of the universe and bent them to their indomitable will, reshaping the very cosmos in their image. So let the galaxy tremble, let the enemies of humanity beware, for the soldiers of Earth are coming and they will not be denied. They will fight, they will bleed, they will die if necessary, but they will never, ever surrender. That is the promise Stephen makes, there on the blood-soaked soil of Kragmar. A promise to his men, to his species, to the very stars themselves. Humanity will not go quietly into the night. They will rage, they will battle, they will make the very heavens shake with the fury of their passing. For they are human, they are soldiers, and they will fight to the bitter end no matter the cost, no matter the odds. That is the legacy they will leave, the indelible mark they will carve upon the face of the universe. Stephen turns his gaze once more to the stars above, those endless glittering points of light, each one a challenge, a promise, a future waiting to be seized, and seize them they will, with the same unwavering spirit that has carried them this far. For they are the warriors of Earth, the soldiers of humanity, and the galaxy will never be the same again. As the dust settles on Kragmar, the bonds forged in battle hold strong. The Wagner, once so dismissive, now look upon their human allies with a newfound respect, a camaraderie born of shared struggle and triumph. Xyloth, his feathers still matted with the grime of combat, clasps forearms with Stephen in a warrior's embrace. But even as the soldiers revel in their hard-won victory, a new shadow looms on the horizon. As Stephen and his squad prepare to depart, Their gear stowed and their spirits high, Xyloth approaches with a grim set to his beak. "Stephen," he says, his voice low and urgent, "I must speak with you before you leave." Stephen nods, sensing the gravity in the Wagnir commander's tone. They step away from the bustling activity of the landing pad, finding a quiet spot amidst the craggy rocks. He speaks of the Xert, a race of insectoid horrors that swarm across the stars, consuming all in their path. Hive-minded and relentless, they seek only to feed, to assimilate, to grow their numbers, until the galaxy itself is little more than a writhing sea of chitin and mandibles. "We have fought them for decades," Xyloth says, his voice heavy with weariness and despair. "But our technology, our tactics, they are not enough. The Xert adapt, they evolve, they overwhelm us with sheer numbers and single-minded ferocity." He looks to Stephen, a desperate plea in his eyes. "But you, your soldiers, you have shown a tenacity, a resourcefulness that we have never seen before. The way you fought on Kragma, the way you overcame every obstacle." Xyloth grasps Stephen's shoulder, his grip urgent. "I ask you, not as a commander, but as one warrior to another, will you join us in this fight? Will you stand with the Wagnir against the Xert?" Stephen is taken aback, his mind reeling at the enormity of the request. To join an alien war, to put his soldiers' lives on the line for a species they barely know. He looks to his squad, sees the questions in their eyes, the uncertainty, but he also sees the resolve, the unwavering spirit that has carried them through hell and back. "I said I need to consult with my superiors," Stephen says, his voice steady despite the turmoil in his heart. "This is not a decision I can make alone." Xyloth nods, understanding in his eyes. "Of course, but know that the fate of the galaxy may well rest on your answer." Stephen and his squad board their transport, the weight of Xyloth's words heavy on their shoulders. As they break atmosphere, Stephen opens a secure channel to Earth, to Admiral Horus. He relays the Vognir's request, the dire nature of the Xert threat. There is a long silence on the other end, broken only by the hiss of static. "This is a decision that will change the course of human history," Horus says at last, his voice grave. "To involve ourselves in a war on the galactic scale, the repercussions could be beyond imagining." But even as he speaks, Stephen can hear the determination in the Admiral's voice, the same steely resolve that has defined humanity's greatest triumphs. "But if this threat is as grave as the Wagnir say, we cannot stand idly by. We did not claw our way to the stars only to watch them be devoured by some insectoid menace." Horus sighs, the weight of command heavy in the sound. "You have my authorization, Stephen. Join the Vognir in their fight. Show the galaxy what humanity is capable of." Stephen nods, though he knows the Admiral cannot see. "Yes, sir, we won't let you down." As the channel closes, Stephen looks to his squad, sees the fire in their eyes, the readiness to face whatever horrors the cosmos can conjure. They came to Kragma as soldiers, as warriors. They leave as something more, something greater. They are the vanguard of humanity, the tip of the spear in a war that will shape the fate of the galaxy itself. Stephen grips the arm of his seat, feels the rumble of the engines through the metal. He thinks back to that fateful day on Zephyr, when the Wagnir first sneered at the idea of human soldiers. Oh, how far they've come. From mockery to respect, from dismissal to desperate alliance. The twists of fate are strange indeed. But one thing remains constant, unyielding. The human spirit, the will to fight, to survive, to triumph against all odds. And as they hurtle through the void, towards a war unlike any they have known, Stephen knows that spirit will be put to the test like never before. But he also knows with a certainty that burns in his very bones that they will not be found wanting. For they are human, they are soldiers. And they will not go quietly into the night. As we hurtle through the void towards the war-torn front lines, I steel myself for what lies ahead. I've seen my fair share of fighting, but from what Xyloth's told us, these Xert sound like a whole new breed of nightmare. A relentless swarm driven by a single all-consuming purpose, to devour everything in their path. We drop out of warp, right into the thick of it. The scene that greets us is like something out of a fever dream. A seething mass of chitin and claws stretches as far as the eye can see, a roiling tide of insectoid horrors crashing against the beleaguered Vognia lines. "Lock and load, people," I bark, checking the charge on my pulse rifle. "We're going in hot." The dropship shudders as it punches through the atmosphere, anti-aircraft fire peppering its hull. I can feel the adrenaline surging through my veins, that old familiar rush of pre-battle jitters. We hit the ground running, boots slamming into the blood-soaked dirt. Xyloth is there to greet us, his feathers matted with ichor, his blades dripping with xert gore. "Thank the stars you're here," he rasps, his voice raw from shouting orders. "We're being overrun, the damn bugs just keep coming." I nod grimly, signaling my squad to take up positions. We fan out, forming a skirmish line alongside the battered Wognia troops. The air is thick with the stench of death and the deafening chitter of a million xert mouthparts. "Hold the line," I roar, opening fire into the advancing swarm. My pulse rifle kicks against my shoulder, each shot vaporizing a xert drone in a spray of sizzling ichor. But for everyone we cut down, a dozen more surge forward to take its place. They clamber over the twitching bodies of their fallen kin, driven by an implacable alien hunger. Beside me, Private Jennings screams as a xert warrior leaps onto his back, its razor-sharp mandibles shearing through his armor like paper. I pivot, blasting the creature off him with a point-blank shot, but the damage is done. Jennings goes down, blood frothing from the gash in his neck. There's no time to mourn. The xert are on us in a frenzy now, all slashing claws and acid-dripping fangs. We fight back with everything we've got: pulse rifles, plasma grenades, even the damn combat knives when they get too close. It's a brutal, bloody affair, the kind of close-quarters meat grinder I thought I'd left behind on Earth. But we hold the line. Inch by bloody inch, we force the xert back, their advance faltering under our relentless fire. But it's not enough. For every wave we repel, another surges forward, an endless tide of chitin and hunger. I can see it in my squad's eyes, in the slumped shoulders of the Wognia troops. We're being ground down, worn away like rocks before the relentless surf. Something's got to give, and if we don't think of something fast, it's going to be us. In a moment of desperate inspiration, I turn to my squad's tech specialist, Corporal Hicks. "Hicks!" I shout over the din of battle. "Those pulse rifles of ours, can you modulate the frequency? Make it a directed EMP burst." Hicks's eyes widen as he catches my drift. "I can try, sir, but I'll need time," and a clear shot at one of the big ones. I grin fiercely. "Leave that to me." I rally my squad along with a handful of Wognia shock troops. We form a wedge, a spearhead of desperate defiance, and charge headlong into the xert lines. It's a suicide run, and we all know it. But it's the only way to buy Hicks the time he needs. We fight like demons, like men and women possessed. Our pulse rifles flare, our blades flash, each of us a whirling dervish of death and defiance. The xert come at us in a frenzy, a seething mass of claws and fangs. We cut them down in droves, but still they keep coming. I catch a glimpse of Hicks hunched over his rifle, his fingers flying over the modulation controls. Just a little longer, just a few more seconds. And then it happens. A xert warrior, larger and more grotesquely muscled than the rest, comes barreling towards me, its claws extended, its maw dripping with corrosive saliva. I brace myself for the impact, knowing full well it's going to rip me in half. But the blow never comes. A searing bolt of energy streaks over my shoulder, catching the xert warrior full in the face. It stumbles, its exoskeleton smoking, its compound eyes bursting like ripe grapes. I dive to the ground, dragging as many of my squad down with me as I can. A heartbeat later, the world turns inside out. A blinding pulse of electromagnetic energy erupts from Hicks's rifle, washing over the xert like a tidal wave. The effect is instantaneous and devastating. The xert warriors convulse and twitch, their neural links to the hive mind severed in an instant. They collapse in droves, their limbs spasming, their mouthparts frothing with agonized foam. The tide turns in a heartbeat. The Kazert, once an implacable wall of chitin and hunger, break and scatter, their hive mind thrown into chaos. We seize the moment, surging forward, pulse rifles blazing, war cries tearing from our throats. It's a rout, a slaughter. We cut down the disoriented Kazert by the hundreds, by the thousands. The ground becomes a churned slurry of mud and ichor, a charnel house of shattered chitin and twitching limbs. And then, as suddenly as it began, it's over. The Kazert are in full retreat, scattering to the winds, their implacable alien will broken at last. We stand there, panting and blood-spattered, hardly daring to believe it. But the proof is there, written in the shattered bodies of the Kazert warriors, in the stunned and grateful faces of the Vognir troops. Against all odds, we've won. We've shown the galaxy that the Kazert, for all their terrible, implacable hunger, are not invincible. It's a turning point, a moment that will be remembered for generations to come. The day that humanity, standing shoulder to shoulder with their Vognir allies, turned the tide against the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known. But for me, for my squad, there's no time to rest on our laurels. This is just the beginning, the first battle in a war that will span star systems and generations. We are the tip of the spear, the first line of defense against the ravenous hordes of the Kazert, and we will not rest, we will not falter, until the galaxy is safe, or until we draw our last breath. For we are human, we are warriors, and we will never ever surrender. As the war against the Kazert reaches its climax, I find myself at the heart of a daring mission alongside my squad. Our objective: to strike at the very core of the insectoid horde, their central hive mind. It's a plan that's as audacious as it is risky, but if we succeed, it could end this bloody conflict once and for all. I step up to lead the assault myself. It's not a decision I make lightly, but my time fighting alongside both human and Vognir soldiers has earned me a measure of respect and trust. If anyone is going to lead this desperate charge, it's going to be me. The mission is a meat grinder from the start. We fight our way through a seething tide of Kazert warriors, their chitinous bodies shattering under the relentless hail of our gunfire. But for everyone we cut down, 2 more seem to take its place. It's like trying to hold back the tide with a bucket. We lose good soldiers along the way. Jenkins, a private who'd been with me since the start of this campaign, takes a spray of acid to the face. He goes down screaming, his flesh sizzling. Xyloth's second-in-command, a grizzled old Vognir named Kraz, is impaled on a Kazert's razor-sharp claw. He keeps fighting even as his lifeblood spills out, taking the beast with him in a final defiant roar. Each death is a fresh wound, a painful reminder of the terrible cost of this war, but we press on, our determination to see this through to the end driving us forward. We've come too far, lost too much to falter now. Finally, after what feels like an eternity of blood and fire, we reach the heart of the hive, and there waiting for us is the Kazert Queen herself. She's a towering monstrosity, her body pulsing with a sickly psionic energy. Her very presence seems to warp the air around her, making it thick and cloying. I steel myself for the fight of my life. This is it, the moment everything has been building towards. I heft my pulse rifle, feeling the weight of it in my hands, the hum of its power core. Then, with a roar of defiance, I charge towards the Queen, my squad at my back. The battle is a blur of slashing claws and searing energy blasts. I push myself to the very limits of my strength and endurance, my armor cracking and sparking under the relentless onslaught. But inch by bloody inch, we drive the Queen back, forcing her into a corner of her own foul nest. With a final, desperate lunge, I manage to plant the explosive charge we've brought with us. It's a high-yield device, capable of vaporizing the Queen and her entire wretched hive. But as I turn to make my escape, I realize with a sinking feeling that the detonator has been damaged in the fighting. The only way to ensure the device goes off is to trigger it manually. I don't hesitate. I know what I have to do. I order my squad to evacuate to get clear of the blast zone. They argue, of course. They're good soldiers, loyal to the end. But I'm their commanding officer, and in the end, they follow my orders. As they retreat, I hold my ground, the detonator clutched in my hand. The Khazar drones surge forward, a chittering wave of claws and fangs. I meet them head-on, my rifle blazing, my war cry echoing through the hive. With my last breath, I thumb the detonator. The world goes white, then nothing. The war is won, but the cost is almost too much to bear. As the survivors gather in the aftermath, human and Wagner, standing side by side, they remember those who fell. They remember me. I can see it in their eyes, a mixture of grief and awe. They know that my sacrifice, the sacrifices of all those who gave their lives, is the only reason they're still standing, the only reason the galaxy is free from the Khazar menace. And as they begin the long, slow process of rebuilding, I know that my legacy, the legacy of all humanity, will live on, a testament to our unbreakable spirit, our refusal to bend or break in the face of even the darkest adversity. In the end, that's what it means to be human, to stand, to fight, to sacrifice so that others may live. It's a lesson the galaxy will never forget. And somewhere, beyond the veil of life and death, I know I'm smiling, because I was there, I fought, I made a difference. And in the end, isn't that what every soldier dreams of? You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.